皆さんこんにちは。犬と私と北欧暮らしのなつこです。今日は久々っていうか初めてかな、2人のトーク動画を撮っていきたいと思います。実は今年からメンバーシップという YouTube クリエイターを応援できる取り組みに私も参加させていただいていて、毎週土曜日に出している動画の他にメンバー限定の動画を毎週1本作っています。こちらはサブスクで290円からご参加いただけますので、一瞬でも入ってくださる方がいたらぜひよろしくお願いします。はい、ということで久々っていうか多分初めての夫婦トークみたいな感じで、ヨハンにいろいろ20分ぐらいね空港まであるので質問していきたいと思います。You should drive and just answer my questions.
Yes.
はい、せっかくだから日本のことをね聞きたいなって思ってて、Why did you choose Japan as,
the country I traveled to?
Yeah.
So I moved to Japan, I would say very young. I was 23, I think, 22, maybe, 22. Yeah. And it was pretty much after high school. I finished high school. I just turned 19 because I'm born early. Yeah, I was really tired of studying at that point. Really did not want to continue my studies yet. So instead I took a job in southern Sweden and I worked for a couple of years to save up money because I knew that I wanted to travel abroad before I continued on to university. And then I chose Japan. Bit of a hard question. There's a lot of answers, I would say. Was firstly, I was very interested in Japan for a long time. I think a lot of people in Sweden overall are interested in Japan. So for a long time, I had listened to Japanese metal music.
そうだね。
So stuff like Despair Spray. I listened to Direngre for a while. And Exist Trace, a smaller metal band. Maximum the Hormone. Yeah. So I was very interested in Japan for the metal scene. And then I also had watched some anime, so I was interested in that too. But then also I knew that Japan was a very beautiful country. Very different from Sweden, how it looked.
Yeah.
So those were maybe the main reasons. But then I found out I could go to Japan and get money from the Swedish government if I studied in Japan, if I studied language. So I went to Japan with a student visa to study Japanese at a language school. That's pretty much how I ended up in Japan then.
But how was learning a new language for you?
Yeah. So the thing was, I was still very tired of studying. That was still true when I went to Japan. So I really mostly used studying as an excuse. So maybe I was young and not like super engaged with learning. So I definitely should have learned more Japanese than I did during the year and a half I was there. But yeah, I thought Japanese is a very hard language to learn. So I would say my Japanese now, it's enough to like survive in a city like Tokyo. Worse at Japanese now than I was when I was living in Japan. Maybe. I think your sister lived here, that helped me a lot to get back to maybe a similar level.
Because you communicated in Japanese, right?
Yeah, we did.
Like, did you actually understand what she said?
Mostly. But she was very nice too, spoke slowly and
repeatedly.
And easy stuff mostly.
So what is easier, listening or speaking?
Listening. Yeah, listening is much easier. I think that's usually the way for people learning a language.
It's same for me.
Yeah.
Like I understand a lot, like listening, but maybe speaking is a little bit hard.
And I think it's got to do with like you know a lot more words than you know that you know, kind of thing. Like you can understand words that you have learned at some point, but you would never think of using them.
Or you can just connect, you can guess what this means by the context.
Yeah.
So after like you lived in Japan for almost 3 years, so what was your thought of Japan now? Like what did you like about Japan? What you didn't like about Japan?
Yeah. So maybe I should say first that I was not a student the whole time. So I changed after about a year. I still studied for another 6 months after that, but I took a job as a language teacher. As an English teacher in Tokyo. And I was an English teacher for almost 2 years working in Tokyo. When you're a student in a language school, you don't actually meet any Japanese people. I mean, very few Japanese people. Of course, when you're in Tokyo, you see Japanese people all the time, but you don't really engage with them. All your friends are foreigners trying to learn the language, stuff like that. When I changed to become an English teacher, you met a different kind of people. So I think it was very nice changing my job to be like meet a lot more Japanese people and get to know more about how Japanese society works and how people interact with each other. And I think a big part of what I really like about Japan is the way people interact with each other. Because I mean, the whole politeness and stuff, maybe it's not always like true politeness or that, but people are kind. People are very, very helpful. They want to help you understand their culture, their customs. So I think that's a very nice thing about Japan.
本音と建前ね。
Yeah, and I think like you wouldn't see in Europe. It's like if you're lost and you ask for directions, like it's not rare that someone would just like say, "Oh, come with me. I will show you. I will take you there." That would not happen in Europe. Like say, "Oh, it's maybe over there. If you take this direction, like there." But they wouldn't like come with you and show you how to go there. That's something I really like about Japan.
So politeness.
Yeah, and the kindness, I would say. The other thing I really like is like one of the reasons why I went there. It's like it's so different from Sweden, like geographically, like how everything looks. It's very beautiful. I love the mountains. Because I'm from the south of Sweden, I'd never really seen mountains in my life before I came to Japan. So I think it's so pretty. Like when we were traveling in Japan, we went to like different islands or hiking in nature, looking around. I thought it was so cool. Yeah. Things I don't like about Japan. I mean, it's gonna get a bit political, which is dangerous, but I don't like the strict focus on hierarchy. I think that the hierarchy thinking in Japan limits Japan. The whole thing about thinking like, oh, they're the boss, so they know the right way of doing things. Or they're the boss, so I should serve them. We don't have that at all in Sweden. And I'm really happy about not having that in Sweden. Yeah, because like at my job, for example, I'm at the very lowest end now. I'm a PhD, so I'm literally under everyone else. But it doesn't feel like that. Like they're always asking for like our input.
So you feel important at work, even though like you're not professors.
I would say I feel respected at work. Like my opinion matters on how we do things, and they ask for my input on things that they are probably better qualified for. And it's not just like fake, they are genuinely interested and they take input from us PhDs too. Like our takes on problems will change how they do things. Yeah. So
they're not afraid of changing systems. They're not afraid of like receiving new ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't understand like senpai and kohai system?
Relationship? No.
Okay.
I think the senpai kohai, it's nice as long as the senpai
It's nice to you.
is nice to you and help you understand. But you have that everywhere, I think. In Sweden you have that too. Our seniors help us so much. Because they're seniors, they know how things work. Yeah. But that where the whole respect thing, you should listen to my orders thing, I think can be quite damaging. Yeah. So being from Sweden, I mean, it's very warm in Japan. It's probably too warm for me usually, especially in Kyushu where you're from. I really love Kyushu. I think it's probably the most beautiful part of Japan that I've been to. But in the summer, I mean, it's like living in a sauna.
そうだね。
Super humid, it's super warm.
Yeah, it's difficult.
And then they have the shock to like going between the heat, and then you go into a store and suddenly they have on the AC like crazy, and it's like suddenly it's like 19-20 degrees. So it feels like going from like the hottest summer to just winter.
Yeah, true.
So that feels kind of crazy too.
スウェーデンはそういう換気システムとかあるけど、だいたいいつも23度ぐらいに保たれてて、家の中とかお店の中もそれがめちゃくちゃなんか冷房ついてるって感じでは全くないから、確かに日本のお店に入るとめっちゃ冷房効いてるっていうのがすごくびっくりするかもしれない。そんな感じでヨハンさんの日本の好きなところと嫌いなところを聞いてみました。It's kind of fun. Like, it's really fun to talk about these differences. Like, I love talking about like comparison, like how things work in Japan, how things work in Sweden is so different.
It's very interesting. It's like, I mean, in many ways I think Sweden and Japan are quite similar, but in other ways it's so different.
It's really good because you lived in Japan, now I live in Sweden. So we kind of share our experience and knowledge. So,
have a perspective on both.
But do you feel like moving back to Japan someday?
I could do that, I think. I wonder how the university system works in Japan.
そうだね。アカデミックのやっぱ英語が使える現場ところがいいっていうので、そうなるとこう限られてくるかなと思うから、どうなんだろうね。ぜひそこにも挑戦したいなとは思うんですけど。
I think there are a lot of like foreign people working in universities in Japan too. Language is probably English. I mean, it is in most places in the university world, but then I also wonder, like, it's very, very flexible in Sweden. It's like we have full flex, so we work depending on what we have to do. We don't have any like specific hours. Only if we have meetings or classes or something like that, that's the only like hours we actually have to fully like be there for. Otherwise we kind of make our own schedule as long as we do what we're supposed to do. And so far I quite like that. I think it would be very hard to go from what I'm doing right now to the Japanese like system. You see in like companies working like 9-10 hours a day and on very strict times. I'm very bad at mornings at all. So I think it's quite nice to be able to like start an hour later in the morning, have a little bit longer to sleep in. Stuff like that would kind of worry me a little bit, but it's probably possible to adjust to.
本当に満員電車に乗って仕事に行くとか、なんか残業するとか、日本では当たり前のことがこっちでは当たり前じゃないし、やっぱそれをしてる、毎日してるって本当にすごいなと思います。
Now we're almost at the airport.
ね、空港にそろそろ着きそうなので、はい、今週も最後までご覧くださりありがとうございました。こんな感じでメンバー限定の動画ではもっとリアルタイムで北欧暮らしの Vlog をお届けしつつ、普段の動画では話せないようなぶっちゃけ話とかいろんな企画を通して動画作りに挑戦しています。土曜日の動画でも引き続きコメントや高評価、そしてチャンネル登録もよろしくお願いします。それでは次回お会いできるのを楽しみにしています。はいどー。